And we're back. Division preview number 3 of the season. Obviously, we'll finish out the AL here with the AL Central. You know, I got another friend with me. Today, I got my guy, Draft Sheet, one of the best DFS players in the industry. Very, very skilled in baseball world, as you guys know. If you remember our preview show from last year, he did give his best bet of Shohei Ohtani to win the AL MVP at like 30-1. Clearly, that cashed. So, great guy to have back. I'm very excited for the episode. Without further ado, what's up, Draft Sheet?
Not much, man. Baseball coming up. We're 9 days out at this point. So one of my favorite times of year. I do a lot of higher stakes season long stuff. I got my biggest draft tomorrow night, so a lot of prep. And that Ohtani call 40-1. We got that MVP ticket, so that was a nice one. And I think I got a few gems out there for the AL Central. So looking forward to it.
Love it. All right. So, I mean, the countdown does continue. It's 9 days until the regular season. So let's get right into it. We're going to talk AL Central, as we mentioned. I'll introduce a team. We'll voice our thoughts on our thoughts on the team, under over win totals, division winning odds, anything else that shoots out at us, including exotics. So let's get right into it. Obviously, people in the chat, if you have any questions, definitely send them in. We'll try to answer the best we can on your guys' questions. So much love again to everybody hanging out. And we'll get right into it. So first team I think wins the division is Chicago White Sox. Obviously, starting with the rotation, looks almost identical to last year, minus Carlos Rendon. This was, the best group of starters for basically 5 months in all of MLB, but they did struggle in September, flopped during the ALDS, as we know. The horse Lance Lynn up top, Lucas Giolito, who's a fan favorite of my own. He has the lowest contact rate of pitches in the strike zone among qualified starters last year. Dylan Cease did take a huge step up last year as well. And I do expect, he has really top-of-the-line stuff if he could limit, obviously, his walks. He did set a career high in wins last year, innings pitched, and strikeouts. He did lower his walk rate from 5.2 to 3.7, so still very impressive. Dallas Keuchel's number 4, and Michael Kopech looks to be the 5th starter, I think. He was initially a starter when he came up to start the bigs, then they moved him to the pen. Now he's back in as a starter. This will be his first full season since 2018, so definitely temper your expectations from him. But the bullpen is very good. Liam Hendricks re-signed 4-year, $54 million after 38 saves last year. He had an absurd 113 strikeouts to 7 walks in 71 innings. Pretty crazy. They brought over Kendall Graveman. Obviously, he pitched on the Mariners and then got traded to the Astros last year. And then he'll be a great setup man. They've re-signed Craig Kimbrell, but I think, his best days are probably past. So I don't expect him to pitch in really crazy high leverage situations. Then they do have Aaron Bummer, Garrett Crochet, who are great lefty arms out of the pen. As you guys know, Garrett Crochet throws friggin' gas. Lineup basically back. Tim Anderson made his first All-Star last year, hit 308. They signed Josh Harrison. I guess he's going to hold down the second base position. Jose Abreu, 35 years old, but he's in a contract year, so I do expect that to have a little motivation. He led the team in home runs, RBIs. Yohan Moncada back on base percentage, 375 last year. He had 84 walks, and that definitely helps, especially with this team is free swinging team, so they need somebody that can get on base for people to mash them in. Obviously, the 2 young studs in Lou Bob, Eloy Jimenez, both missed half the year last year. So if they can stay healthy, they could easily hit 30 home runs each, 100 RBIs. Obviously, Lou Bob, he switched his stance a little bit last year. He opened his stance. His strikeout rate dropped 12%. He improved his contact rate from 70 to 74%, which was the biggest jump in MLB. Yasmani Grandal's back at catcher. He had a great 2021 as well, 23 homers, 279 at-bats. Gavin Sheets, Andrew Vaughn, Adam Engel will also get at-bats. So this team is very good, clear-cut favorites to win the division. I think the rest of the teams are kind of jumbled up. But, can be considered a success for this team, I think, is really to win the AL, go to the World Series. They're not really content with winning this division anymore. So I expect them to make some moves during the season to shore up this team. Under overset at 92.5. That's probably about fair because this division's, anyone could really, in 2, 3, 4, 5, anybody could do anything over there. Minus 210 to win the division. No, thank you. Plus 460 to win. They're the favorites to win the AL right now. Plus 460, plus 1,000 to win the World Series. I'm going to pass on all of them. I think you get better odds. If you like them really, I think you get better odds in the season. What do you think about the White Sox?
Yeah, it's hard to not like this team, right? They're a complete team. The lineup looks good. A team that obviously wants to win. They've got up-and-coming sluggers and Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez. rotation strong, even with the loss of Carlos Rodon. It's deep, 5 pretty good pitchers. Dallas Keuchel, obviously kind of on his last legs, but a guy who can eat innings. Bullpen looks good. So, yeah, I really don't have too many negative things to say about this team. I think, keeping those young guys healthy, Robert and Jimenez have both had a number of injuries early on in their career. So that's a little bit of a concern for me, just the grind of the season wearing them down, because the lineup does fall off a little bit in the back half. And if you lose those two guys, maybe the offense could struggle a little bit. Obviously, Abreu getting up there in age too. And then, we did see a little bit of fading from some of the White Sox starters down the stretch after the foreign substance ban. Giolito, Lynn lost some spin on his fastball, wasn't quite as effective. He's getting older. Dylan Cease, high upside guy, but I still have some question marks about his command. I could see him, not delivering what people are expecting. So maybe if I'm, really trying to nitpick this team, those would be the reasons. But I do think they'll be a strong team. I do think they are, are rightfully favored to win the division, but I'm not giving the minus 210, 92.5. I think DraftKings had it at 91.5 when I looked this morning. I'll probably take the under, but overall just probably pass on the bets. And I really don't have, much with the White Sox to kind of chase down. So kind of a team that I'm just kind of expect to perform like the market expects them to perform. So not a ton of bets action here for me either.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, so let's move on to the next team. We'll give it to you first. Your boys, the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah, Twins coming off a really down year. They were expected to compete in the AL Central last year. Didn't really happen. Number of injuries, pitching fell apart. It just a season that, sometimes it goes that way, where it just went completely haywire early on. They ended up trading Jose Barrios and Nelson Cruz at the trade deadline, obviously, once they realized they were out of it. But they've retooled pretty well this year. The pitching staff is still a huge question mark for them. Sonny Gray, I think, was an interesting signing. But beyond that, Dylan Bundy, who knows what to expect from him? Probably not much. I do like their 2 rookies or younger starters, Bailey Ober and Joe Ryan, who I think both guys have upside, but not ace level upside. I don't think they're going to get there. Joe Ryan in particular, I think, is an interesting guy to watch. And then they just signed Chris Archer just in the last couple days. Again, who knows, right? So the pitching staff for sure is a question mark, but I do like the lineup's chances to bounce back after a rough season. Byron Buxton staying healthy for once in his career is going to be a huge, huge for this team. But man, when he's healthy, one of the best players in baseball. Will bring up my first bet, I guess. And going back to 40-1, you can get Byron Buxton to win AL MVP at 40-1. Listen, the guy is the best defensive center fielder in baseball. He absolutely mashed last year when he was healthy. And his big injury last year was getting hit in the hand by a pitch. So I think a fully healthy season of Byron Buxton could easily be, an MVP winner. And health can turn at any time, right? Some players, it's like they can't shake the injury bug, and then all of a sudden they do, because a lot of his injuries, like I said, hitting the hand, crashing into walls, yes, that could happen again. But there's no reason he couldn't deliver a healthy season. He's 28 years old, obviously a fantastic athlete. So I really do like that. A long shot bet, Buxton to win MVP. Twins team total, I've seen 81.5. I will probably take the over, but I think that's a fair number, I guess. But yeah, I really like Buxton. Alex Kirilloff, I think, is going to have a big bounce back season. Played through a wrist injury last year, but he can really hit. And then, the signing of Carlos Correa, big bat in the middle of the lineup. Great defense, obviously at shortstop. This team should be really good defensively overall. Buxton, Correa up the middle. Gary Sanchez maybe getting out of New York will kind of revive that bat. So a lot of interesting pieces here, particularly with the lineup. And I do think this team will come out hitting out of the gate.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you said. I think, really the big question mark is really in the rotation. As you said, Barrios is gone. Pineda's gone. Kenta Maeda's out for the season, basically, with Tommy John. Then they got Sonny Gray. He was solid last year, 4.19 over 135 innings. 155 strikeouts. He did have a 47% ground ball rate, which is great. Now, Dylan Bundy, as you stated, slotted to be the number 2 starter. I'm not sure if you watched him in spring training or not, but he hasn't thrown over 88 miles per hour on his fastball.
Okay, so that's not going to last
not
long.
going to get it done.
Yeah.
No. And last
I didn't
year,
see that.
Yeah. They were talking about it multiple times on the broadcast I was watching. And he had over 60 ERA last year, 20 homers in 90 innings. He threw the sinker career high last year. Obviously, he's getting away from throwing the fastball because he has no more heat on it. He threw the sinker a lot, career high last year, and they were mashing as well. He threw it 60% of the time. Opponents punished it. 609 slugging against on that sinker. So obviously, they'll lean on the big guy, Bailey Ober. Joe Ryan is definitely interesting. He struck out 30 people in 26 innings last year in his taste of the majors. He had a 0.78 whip in 66 innings in AAA as well. And then, as you mentioned, Chris Archer just to round it out. The bullpen used 29 different relievers last year. Taylor Rogers wasn't really healthy, so when he's healthy, he saved 30 games in 2019, so he could be a top-tier closer in the league for sure. Tyler Duffy paired with Caleb Thibaut, solid righty-lefty combo for a setup. They were combined 10-3, 34 holds last year for a team that was basically in last place, They obviously added Joe Smith to the pen as well. So that should be pretty interesting. The pen should be a little bit better. And they got Jorge Alcala, who throws really friggin' gas. The offense, Carlos Correa, Gary Sanchez, Gio Urshela, not much on the offensive end, but he'll definitely help defensive-wise. And Sano hit 30 home runs last year, but he also struck out 183 times. Byron Buxton, as you mentioned, I think he'd be a star if he's healthy. But that's the question, though. He's only played over 92 games in one of his 7 seasons in Minnesota. So if he could stay healthy, I love that bat that you threw out there for sure. Now, Max Kepler in the outfield and they had 4 other people play the same position, left field, in 7 games last year. Kirilloff, as you mentioned, Larnack, and Gilbert Celestino probably all get looks. Gary Sanchez hit 23 homers last year, but he did play in Yankee Stadium, a little smaller stadium. And, his defense will definitely aggravate you, especially you at times. And then Nick Gordon and maybe a little Austin Martin action. I'm not sure how far away he is. You would know better. But at the end of the day, I really don't trust this rotation from right now. I'm looking at it right now. I do not trust this rotation. Definitely not to win the division. Their offense is good, but in this league, you need pitching to win, especially rotation. 81.5 is about right. I kind of lean over as well. Plus 500 to win the division, just a pass for me. And I can almost guarantee you'll get a better number than that live if you need it in season, plus 500. So that'll just be a pass for me.
Yeah, the rotation, man, that's going to fall apart. Like if Bundy's not healthy, they have guys coming up to the minors that can hit. Jose Miranda was one of the best hitters in AAA last year. He'll be up third base infielder, and I think he'll be up relatively quickly. Probably won't break camp with the team. So I do think the offense will produce, but man, there's going to be injury. I mean, how long is Chris Archer going to last? The 2 rookies, how many innings can they even throw? Sonny Gray, not a guy that a workhorse type pitcher, and they don't really have anyone behind those guys. So it could get really ugly on the pitching side if they get bit by the injury bug at all, which you've got to assume they're going to with the arms they have, and every team pretty much does anyway. So yeah, good offense, but the pitching, especially the starting rotation, leaves a lot to be desired.
Sure. Shout out to chat, everybody in here. Johnny Nelson, Rolk Air, Leelor Flood, Chris, Robert, Chris Brady. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Much love. All right. On to the next team. Let's talk about the Cleveland Indians. Guardians, whatever you want to call them. They had a streak of 8 straight seasons, winning seasons. That came to an end last year. They did have, their top 3 starters basically missed significant time in Bieber, Aaron Savali, and Zach Plesac. Opponents raked on Plesac's fastball as well. All 3 of his secondary pitches were positive run values, but that fastball they were killing. They batted .428 x-weighted on base percentage against that fastball. So, and Cal Quantrill basically emerged out of nowhere last year with everybody else unhealthy. He went 7-1, 1.94 ERA in 14 starts after the All-Star break. Tristan McKenzie, another young arm who I personally like. He had 7 straight quality starts in the second half, so he projects to be the 5th starter out of camp as well. So this rotation, arguably the best in the division, them or the White Sox. I do like the division. I do like their pitching. The pen's pretty good too. They lost Blake Parker, Nick Wickreen, but no one really big. They still have retireable closer Emmanuel Clase. James Karinchak should be healthy. He did struggle, as you mentioned, the sticky stuff. He did struggle after the sticky stuff ban.
He was the guy. I've read some things. His spin rate decreased more than anyone else in baseball.
That's probably right. Yeah,
he's really reliant on that. Riding fastball, right? Four-seam fastball to throw it above the zone, and he just couldn't do it anymore. He got absolutely hammered. Yeah. I think Karinchak might be it might have just ruined him. He might have to try to
reinvent himself.
Well, or just try to get away with using it.
Sure, until he gets caught. Yeah, not a bad idea.
I mean, if you're not going to be effective without it, then maybe you got to do it. But
true.
Yeah. I think I'm maybe is not quite as high on these pitchers as you are. Cleveland known for their pitching, but big things were expected from Plesac and Savali last year. They were kind of disappointing. Quantrill did have a good run to end September, but sometimes those September stats, right, as teams are kind of playing rookie guys, stuff like that, I don't trust him quite as much. I do like McKenzie quite a bit, but again, not that much experience. And then Bieber missed a lot of the season with that shoulder strain, I believe. Says he's healthy now, but he's getting rocked in the spring, and the velocity I think is down a couple miles per hour as well. So I'm a little bit worried about Shane Bieber. If you got fantasy drafts coming up, I wouldn't pay that third round price for Shane Bieber. Kind of a fade for me as we get closer to the season. And then the lineup, right?
The lineup is the lineup was terrible last year. Obviously, Ahmed Rosario was a little bit of a pleasant surprise, I guess you could say. They re-signed him in the offseason. Sure. Now it's looking like Andre Jimenez is going to be the everyday second baseman, so it's going to be those two in the middle. Jose Ramirez will be the third baseman. He led the Bigs 338 extra base hits since 2017. Bobby Bradley is going to be the first baseman. He's shown power, but he has a strikeout rate over 40%. Really struggled versus lefties. And I think Stephen Kwan looks to be one of the starting outfielders, Oregon State prospect. He's definitely a name to look out for. Miles Straw at the top of the lineup definitely returned since coming over from the Astros. Bradley Zimmer, Oscar Mercado playing the outfield. Nobody crazy. Franmil Reyes is the DH. He started 11 times in right field, so I'm not sure if they're going to try to bring him to the outfield. Probably not, though. He did hit 30 dingers, career high, 85 RBIs. There's also a strikeout machine. Austin Hedges is now the closer. He was so bad on the offensive end. He batted 180 for the whole season. Played great defensive catcher, but I mean, their over set at 75.5, which is pretty damn low if you ask me. As I mentioned earlier, I do like the pitching staff, and this team, I figured this team always competes. Even last year, how bad were they? They still won 77 games, this team always competes no matter who they throw out there. It's kind of like Oakland a little bit,
Sure.
And last year they were 43-33 versus AL Central, and I think they're only going to be better this year. So plus 1,000 to win the division, that's intriguing. I'm not going to put my money there, but I'm going to take them over that number, over 75.5 wins.
Yeah, I think I'll pass, but I think I would actually lean under. It's also a team that they're super cheap, right? Their owners don't like to spend money, so some of these teams where they're the over under win total is sitting in that mid 70s, and you get to the trade deadline and you either got to go for it or trade. I think the Indians are very likely to throw in the towel maybe earlier than some teams were, just because the White Sox should be up top at that point. Cleveland, they just love to save money any chance they get. So you could see them maybe. I mean, Jose Ramirez would probably bring back a huge prospect haul. I think he's on a pretty relatively team-friendly contract. So that's a concern for me. And then, even if they're playing pretty well, they're not a team that's going to add salary, right? So you don't have to, if you're taking the under, you don't have to worry about improvements, coming up from another team. And then I don't see a ton that I like coming up from the minors either, which I think is kind of an overlooked factor when people are, trying to handicap these win totals. So I would lean under, but like you said, Cleveland always manages to have a pretty decent season. So I do get your side of it as well.
Yeah. Ramirez, that is a good point, because Ramirez is controlled one more year, but it's a team option. So
you would almost expect him to get traded if they're not having a good year.
Sure. They could definitely trade him before the deadline. That's a great point. All right, so we'll do the Royals next. I'll let you go first with the Royals.
Yeah, Royals are one of my favorite teams to cheer for this year, just based on the team that they have. I think most people, Kansas City Royals, obviously a small market team, but I think this offense is going to really, really surprise people. Obviously, you've got returning Whit Merrifield. You know what to expect from him. Salvador Perez, perhaps the best hitting catcher in baseball. Benintendi kind of faded out in Boston, but he's a solid player for the Royals at this point. Mondesi, who's an absolutely electric player, kind of similar to Byron Buxton. And the talent is just through the roof, but just can't stay on the field. He's healthy right now, which is obviously all you can ask. We'll see. Apparently, he did like strength and conditioning work for the first time in his life over the offseason, which seems a little silly, but that could make a difference. He had like oblique injuries, right? If you're just like super weak in your core or whatever. So I got a little bit of hope there. And then the big one, Bobby Witt Jr., going to be an absolute stud for this team, crushing it in spring. Last year in the minor leagues, spread between AA and AAA, I think about evenly. I think it was like 120 games, 33 home runs, 29 steals. Going to play third base for this team as Mondesi already has shortstop kind of locked up. But yeah, he's going to be on the opening day roster, it looks like. And I expect big, big things from him. You can get him at plus 330, I saw on DraftKings to win Rookie of the Year. On a normal year, I would absolutely love that. But there's a lot of rookies to compete with. In particular, Julio Rodriguez of the Mariners, who I think is going to absolutely rake for them. He's plus 700. So I actually like Rodriguez more than Witt, but I do think Witt is going to have a huge season. You can get him his home run prop on DraftKings, 20.5 home runs for a guy who hit 33 in 122 games in the minors and is developing the power. Obviously, I think he's 21 or 22 years old. Has hit 2 like 450-foot bombs in spring training, and is he going to hit second in this lineup? So that he's going to play every day. I think if he stays healthy, that 20.5 number is a virtual lock, honestly. So one of my favorite bets. Over 20.5 minus 110, you can get Witt. And I also think this team. Listen, I don't love the pitching staff. They brought in Zach Greinke, who's going off a down year, but I wouldn't be shocked if Greinke kind of, figured something out and was able to return to not to his glory days back in Kansas City, but be an effective innings eater, especially Carlos Hernandez, their fifth starter, has great stuff, throws in the upper 90s. And then, guys like Brady Singer, Chris Bubick, they do have a few guys who are interesting young arms. They haven't shown much so far, but the talent's there. If you look at their pitch velocities and movements and stuff, they do grade out pretty well. So the rotation is certainly a weakness coming into the season, but I could at least see a world where it turns out to be okay and the offense does its thing. This team also has some guys that will hopefully come up from the minor leagues that I really like. In particular, MJ Melendez. Keep an eye on this guy. Led all minor leagues in home runs as a catcher last year, 41 home runs. Was crushing it in spring. They did just send him down yesterday, but I think he'll be up in a couple of weeks. Can play first base, can kind of play all over, but would mostly be DH and then split time with Salvador Perez behind the plate. But I think he could make a huge difference in this lineup, swinging from the left side. So I like what I see here. The win total 74.5. I like the over for the Royals. And then I like them as a long shot to win the division too. They're my long shot division winner here, plus 1,500 on DraftKings you can look at. So this is a team pretty high on in general.
Yeah, I hear you. I am a year, I guess this is a year late. I gave out Bobby Witt as a play to win the Rookie of the Year last year at 25-1.
They were talking about him breaking camp, and then it just never happened.
I know.
But it's happening this year. So
yeah. So obviously this year now it's down to, even on FanDuel, it's like plus 275. So
yeah.
I will not advise anyone to take that number. Possibly get a better number live if you start slow. But
there's just too many good rookies. Julio Rodriguez, I mentioned. The Tigers have Riley Green.
Yep.
Spencer Torkelson.
We're both going to start at
Yeah, so there's so much competition, even though he could have an awesome year and still not win it because someone else could just be even better.
Sure, yeah. So as we mentioned, the rotation, they have some good young studs. Greinke's going to replace Mike Minor, who is now gone. Brad Keller's the number 2, who, his ERA went from 2.47 to 5.39 last year. He gave up a lot of homers. Chris Bubik, Brady Singer, and Carlos Hernandez, big Carlos Hernandez guy. I bet on him a lot last year. 6-2, 3.68 ERA after joining the rotation in mid-July. They do have Jackson Coard, who likely gets some a shot at the rotation as well. Danny Lynch. They do have a lot of young guys. The pen sets up with Scott Barlow, who he had a great advanced metrics, 2.63 FIP.
He's legit.
Yeah, it's his job to lose, really. He's 5-3, 2.42 ERA, 16 saves last year. Amir Garrett, hard thrower, and Josh Stument basically will be the setup duo. They have some other young people in the pen as well. Dylan Coleman, Domingo Tapia, Jake Brent. So obviously now the lineup pretty good. Witt obviously up there at the top. Whit Merrifield, Bobby Witt, both of them. And defensively, Nicky Lopez was the top defensive shortstop in all of baseball last year. Whit Merrifield was second defensive in metrics in the AL. I'm not sure if they're going to move Merrifield to the outfield or not.
They are. So
they are.
It looks like Nicky Lopez will go over to second base. Mondesi's going to stay at shortstop. But I mean, if he is the best defensive shortstop, he's probably going to be the best defensive second baseman or close to it. Mondesi's a fantastic defender with speed. And then Bobby Witt's a shortstop too by trade, but he's going to play third base, which again, shortstop's the toughest position on in the infield to play by far. Usually, if you move a guy off shortstop to one of those positions just because it's covered, they're going to perform pretty well. So I think they'll be pretty damn good defensively. Even Michael Taylor in center is great.
Oh yeah, Michael Taylor and Benintendi, they won Gold Gloves last year.
Yep.
This team turned their most double plays in all of baseball last year, 152. I mean, this team, and Salvi's a beast behind the plate. He led the league in caught stealing, 44%. Yep. I mean, this team is good, very good defensively.
There's a lot to like here, and kind of opposite of the Indians. I mean, if this team's playing well, it's been a while for the Royals before they've kind of had a contender. I would expect this team to add to the squad, acquire a couple pitchers. Right? There's obviously they have some high upside young arms. So they just need one or two of those guys to hit. Maybe acquire a starter or two at the trade deadline if they're competing, if the lineup's doing what we think it can do with that defense behind them. I think there's room here for the Royals to surprise some people for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think, the ceiling is probably a year or two away.
Yeah,
but, they're definitely exciting, and they're definitely going to compete. That's for sure. 74.5, I think, definitely can go over that number as well.
Yeah, and they're gonna run wild on the base pass.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, Whit Merrifield. I forgot the stat on Whit Merrifield on steals, but I think
40 for 44 led baseball last year in steals. Mondesi's actually the betting favorite to lead the league in steals at plus 275, and then Whit I think is going to be a 30+ steal guy as well. Benintendi can run. There's just a lot to like here.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, so last but not least, let's do the Tigers. All right, so, I mean, they surprisingly won 77 games last year, and then right after the World Series, immediately threw $217 million at Eduardo Rodriguez and Javi Baez. They did trade for Tucker Barnhart as well. I mean, the talent built around them is still really homegrown. They have a lot of young studs in the waiting, but basically – maybe the best development really is in the rotation. Obviously, Eduardo Rodriguez, over 6 seasons in Boston, 4.16 ERA, 64-39 overall. They did lose Spencer Turnbull and Matthew Boyd, who were, somewhat veterans in that rotation. But then they have these young guys. All three of the four of them were drafted in the first or second round. Yeah. Casey Mize, Tariq Skubal. Mize didn't miss many bats last year, but his ceiling is definitely, he definitely has much. He definitely improved. Tariq Skubal, it's quite the opposite. Doesn't really strike out like a batter per inning. But and then the more youngsters in the back lineup. Back to rotation. Matt Manning, Tyler Alexander. They did add Michael Pineda as well, who will likely get some starts. And the bullpen is good. The bullpen is really good. I think they had the 6th largest workload last year in this bullpen. Maybe a little bit of the same. Gregory Soto is the closer. He throws gas, but he walks a lot of people, which happens when you throw triple digits. He held opponents to a 1.86 weighted on base percentage against his fastball, striking out people 61%, which was the second best in majors. They brought back Michael Fulmer, who was a converted starter. Willie Peralta should be in the pen as well. Jose Sincero, Joe Jimenez. Plus, they added the lefty Andrew Chafin from the A's. He had a 1.83 ERA in 71 appearances last year. Offensive end, obviously, Baez slots right into the middle of the lineup after 31 homers, 18 walks. And now they have a lot of young guys. Akil Baddoo is going to be right up top. He definitely, he was a question mark. He definitely secured himself in the outfield after last year. Riley Green, it's looking like both Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson are going to start in the majors this year. Riley Green batted over 300 AA, AAA last year. Torkelson is supposedly the best hitter, number one prospect in all of baseball. Now that we got Miguel Cabrera, he's 39 now. He'll definitely be good veteran presence in the clubhouse. I'm not sure how much more we're going to get out of him. Yeah. Robbie Grossman had a great year too. 23 homers last year, 67 RBIs. Barnhart will be back there. He's a two-time Gold Glove winner and one of the best defensive catchers in the league. So, end of the day, this team is really dependent on what they get out of their young talent. Mainly, the starters really. The top two I mentioned. Then, they also have a lot of young guys that I didn't even mention. Dylan Dingler, who mashed last year in AA. Joey Wentz is a lefty pitcher, really good guy. Jackson Jobe, Ty Manton. They have a lot of people. They're probably 2 years away from really taking a chance at this AL Central, I think. So the future is bright for this team. I'm not sure this year. Under-over is set at 77.5. So their under-over is basically higher than both the Indians and the Royals. I lean under to win AL Central plus 750. That's just a pass for me.
Yeah, this team's a tough one to evaluate because it kind of comes down to what you feel about their young talent, right? And to me, it's a pretty high number on the win total for a team that, I still think a lot of question marks in the lineup. Javier Baez, I get a big name, but a guy who has, just horrific, plate discipline, strikeout issues. I think I'm not necessarily predicting it, but things can go south for him in a hurry. I like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson a lot, but again, two rookies with zero major league experience that you're likely relying on to round out what is, I think, a pretty pedestrian lineup otherwise. And then the big thing, like you mentioned, is, where you rank or what you think of the development of Casey Mize, Tarek Skubal, and Matt Manning, right? The 3 first-round pitchers. And my metrics don't like any of those guys. Tarek Skubal just gets murdered by right-handed bats, allowed more barrels to right-handed hitters than any pitcher in baseball last year. And Mize and Manning just can barely miss any bats. And I just don't see it with those guys. Now, listen, sometimes pitchers make the jump, right? But so far this spring, nothing new in terms of, increased velocity or anything like that. So I'm not really a believer, especially in the rotation on these young guys. Just being honest about it. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but for now, I got to see it from them before I buy in with the Tigers. So I'll take the under on that 77.5 number.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up the division. My best bet is going to be Indians over 75.5 via Panzol minus 110. You have a best bet you want to give out to the people?
Yeah, Bobby Witt over 20.5 home runs on DraftKings. He will get over 20.5 if he doesn't get hurt. Basically, that's part of the risk, right? With the over bets on the season long is you got to stay healthy. You can lose it two ways: performance or health. But no history of any injury. Young kid. And I think he's going to match. So, yeah, Bobby Witt over 20.5 home runs.
I love that. All right, so I'll be back later in the week with another division preview. Thank you. I want to say thank you, Draft Sheet, for coming on. Much appreciated. Yeah. Make sure to follow us both on Twitter, guys, if you aren't already. I'll be back again, as I mentioned, posting the YouTube video. Write some comments in the YouTube video. I'm doing a giveaway. I'm going to give away a hobby box, free mosaic, MLB hobby box. There's 3 autos in it. All you have to do is post in the video. After we post it, just post in the comments what you liked about the video, what you didn't like, who you think is going to win the AL Central, whatnot. All right, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. Hit the like button on the way out. We're out. Peace.